Welcome to Zvia Weight Loss and Medspa. If you've been wondering why your energy just crashes a couple hours after lunch, or why weight has shifted to your midsection and will not budge no matter what you do, or maybe why your body just isn't responding the way it used to, you are not imagining it. It really isn't. And that's what makes it so frustrating, right? You haven't changed your habits, but your body has changed its response. Today, we're going to explore insulin sensitivity and glucose regulation, the biological system that controls how every single cell in your body gets fuel. And, understanding it changes everything about how you approach your metabolic health. So here's what's actually happening. Your cells have this signaling system for absorbing glucose, which is your body's main fuel source. When that system is working well, you eat, glucose gets into your cells efficiently, and you have stable energy. But when it starts to decline, which it does gradually over time, your body has to produce more and more insulin just to get the same result. And that extra insulin, it's not just some neutral workaround. Research shows that having chronically elevated insulin actively promotes fat storage and at the same time suppresses fat breakdown. So the compensation itself actually becomes part of the problem. And here's a really striking data point that shows this in action. Your adipose tissue, so your fat cells, have an insulin sensitivity rhythm that peaks right around midday. By midnight, that sensitivity is about 54% lower. It's a powerful built-in rhythm. Okay, so let's walk through the actual biology here. When your blood glucose rises after a meal, your pancreatic beta cells release insulin. That insulin then binds to the insulin receptor on your target cells. We're talking mainly muscle, liver, and fat tissue. Exactly. So that binding action kicks off this whole chain reaction, kind of like dominoes falling. One protein activates another, which activates another, and so on. The final step in this cascade tells these special glucose transporters, called GLUT4, to move up to the cell's surface, where they can finally open up and let all that glucose in. That entire process, from start to finish, is the molecular definition of insulin sensitivity. Right, so when people talk about insulin resistance, they're really talking about one or more of those steps, those dominoes, becoming less efficient. Exactly right. And here's what makes this biology so fascinating. Your skeletal muscle has a completely separate pathway for glucose uptake during exercise. When your muscles contract, it activates an enzyme called AMPK, which basically drives those glucose transporters to the surface through its own private route. And this pathway, it doesn't need insulin at all. So even if someone has significant insulin resistance, exercise can still open that glucose store through a different pathway. And the benefit extends for hours beyond the workout itself. The signaling proteins stay activated, which primes your cells for enhanced insulin sensitivity for up to 16 hours after just a single session. It's why physical activity is so uniquely powerful for metabolic health. And there's also this whole gut connection, right? It's a major one. After you eat, your intestinal cells release these things called incretin hormones, primarily GLP-1 and GIP. Together, these hormones account for an estimated 50 to 70% of the insulin your pancreas releases after a meal. They also do other things like slow down digestion and signal to your brain that you're full. They're a huge part of the system. So how does this system change over a person's lifetime? Because I think that's what most people are really experiencing, that feeling that the rules have somehow changed. Totally. In your 20s and early 30s, the system typically runs beautifully. Stable energy, predictable body composition. But then, in your late 30s through your 40s, muscle mass starts to decline. And for women, perimenopause introduces estrogen fluctuations that can directly disrupt that insulin signaling pathway. Then, in your 50s and beyond, the body often enters this compensatory phase. It starts pumping out more and more insulin just to keep your blood glucose levels normal. And it works for a while, but all that extra insulin is silently promoting fat storage. So, what can someone do to support this biological system through their daily choices? How can we start working with our biology? Well, the good news is the science points to 3 really clear areas where we can have a huge impact. The first is meal timing. Since your insulin sensitivity has that circadian rhythm we mentioned, peaking at midday, eating your larger meals earlier aligns with your body's peak metabolic window. The same meal can literally produce a different glucose response depending on when you eat it. The second is combined training, aerobic plus resistance. Resistance training builds more muscle, which is where you dispose of glucose, and aerobic training activates that powerful AMPK bypass pathway. And sleep matters too. And not just how much, right? Exactly. Sleep restriction alone can reduce insulin sensitivity by about 30%. But when that sleep loss also includes circadian misalignment, like shifted timing, that reduction is nearly twice as large. So it's not just about duration, it's about timing and quality.
And of course, dietary choices matter as well. Fiber helps modulate those gut hormone signals we talked about. Omega-3 fatty acids can actually activate that exercise pathway directly. And magnesium is crucial for supporting the insulin receptor itself. So these aren't just generic wellness tips. They are specific interactions with the pathways we've been discussing.
This is why understanding your biology matters so much. When you know that insulin sensitivity follows a daily rhythm, that exercise activates a totally separate glucose uptake pathway, and that sleep and nutrition interact directly with these signaling cascades,
You stop blaming yourself for outcomes that have biological explanations. And you can start making choices that work with your body instead of against it.
at Zvia, this is what we do. We evaluate your specific metabolic markers, your insulin sensitivity, your glucose patterns, your body composition, and your hormonal landscape.
Because your biology is unique and your strategy should be too.
You can visit us at www.zavia.com. That's ZVIA.com. Or you can call us at 303-902-5353. We invite you to schedule your consultation with the Zvia team today. And just a reminder, this is educational information. Your Zvia provider will work with you to determine if this approach is appropriate for your individual needs.